So what you have at the top is, I would say it's mostly kind of visual noise. There's some bits that are readable, but they're just kind of small damage. Whereas if we compare here, it's not about the believability or realism of the damage itself, it's the way it reads, right? Here, even from the distance you can see it. You can see those cuts in here. They're quite deep, they're quite big, and again, when you're going to be texturing this, you will have plenty of space to actually, you know, create color in here, put the color in here. So it's going to be more interesting for sure, rather than having this kind of visual noise everywhere all around. So all of those things, they need to be, it's not about, you know, doing some kind of analysis of the concept, even though they should be, and you definitely did, considering just how much reference you found. But it's kind of thinking about it's a little bit beyond that. Just how in the end, how it's going to be perceived, how it's going to feel when you look at this character. And if it's going to be just, you know, small things flickering here and there, it's not going to be very interesting. The same goes for the proportions. If it's just going to be a kind of predictable shape with something with kind of more or less realistic proportions, it's not going to be interesting. It's just going to be, you know, okay, even if the execution is kind of top spot on. So we need to address those things as well. The same goes for the accessories that you've created. So one of the things that perhaps would be the best example of what I'm trying to illustrate in here, even though you might, you know, see it as a small detail, it is a small detail, but it is about the kind of not the mindset, but just the approach in general. So it's going to come from smaller details to the largest ones. So here, if we again look at the character, I see this detail quite well. I see that it's almost the pattern here, it's almost like Arabic or something like that, you know, this kind of wavy diagonal structure in here. Maybe those are some kind of gems. I'm not sure. They're probably not. They're probably the same gold element that we see in here, right? But there is definitely something going on, and it is quite chunky, and at the same time you can even see the damage in here being quite big. You know, the damage in here quite large as well. The structure in here is, you know, big, and then you have this thing going on as well. So not just flat surface, but rather structure with things embedded into it. So here, this element that I'm talking about on your model, this is simply just a pattern like that, right? And it's tiny. From here, again, because of the this is a screenshot from the stream, so it's not very high quality, but even if it was a stream and you've made something like that, it would have been visible. Whereas at the moment, it's just fading into nothing. It just becomes noise, a visual noise, and we don't want visual noise. We want structure in here. The same goes for this kind of thing going on at the top, this kind of cap. What you have is more boxy, and you know, it is kind of, on the one hand, it's a question of design. But the thing here is that because it's a flattish and round surface, there's going to be more reflection in here. There's not going to be this edge that you've put on your model, this kind of structure like that, where this is the edge that I'm trying to indicate. So if there's going to be an edge like you have in here, the reflection is going to be mostly on that edge. Whereas if the structure is kind of round, the whole surface is going to reflect the light, and so it's going to be more interesting immediately. And then you have a chunkier button at the top, which is just pure sphere, and it's also going to be, you know, reflective. If it's going to be dull, there's going to be plenty of color to give this interest. So what I read on your version is something that is more decorative, and it goes for the sword as well. They look more like toys almost. They're almost like their decoration, whereas here he's definitely you know, kind of powerful. He can, well, it feels like he can kill. And so what I think needs to be done in here, you need to make those ends sharp, like properly sharp. They should be it should feel like it's a sphere, or excuse me, spear. And the structure wise, look at here, if you connect the edge, the blade, well, it's kind of not a blade, but I mean the edge of the spear, it's just, you know, straight line, whereas what you have at the moment, you have this going on, this kind of thing. So it makes it look more like it's something, some kind of an element of some kind of ritual rather than an actual spear. So all of those things, like for example this edge in here, this damage in here, those damages in here, they make it look like it was used. You know, it's not just something that he's holding, but it's actually it's something that has been used. This big button in here, you barely have space to put it in, right? If you make it bigger, the base, the foundation of the not the foundation, but the base of the tip, you will have plenty of space to put that detail into that, and again will create more interest. And for the execution of the ornaments, we need to be more careful with that as well, because at the moment it reads like it's a piece of plastilin or some kind of soft material, whereas this is metal. It has to read like it is metal. So we need to be addressing that in here as well. For the kind of foundation, for just putting this as some kind of a guide, it definitely works, this brush, but we need to make sure again that it reads like a proper metal. So here I would say they should be at the top of all of those ornaments that you've done, like the top bit of them. I would say they should be just flat. So if we look at the kind of profile of the cutouts, at the moment what you have is this, right? So this is the top of the ornament. So this line in here, this is what it is, and I would say it needs to be doing that. So it will make it more it will make it stronger. There will definitely there will definitely be more interest, and the foundation is also for texturing and for light reflection and things like that, because at the moment it's just I would say it's not working. The same situation with the sheath. It's just let's see. Yeah, there are some ropes in here as well, so it's again quite bulky, and it's not there's more going on. It's almost like the shape of it is something, you know, like that almost. You can feel it being just a little bit bulkier. The detail, excuse me, the kind of the ornaments, they, you know, stand out. You can even see them on the silhouette, so they're going this way. And the color, the different color that we see in here, this yellowish, orangish, goldish, if you have it done in this way, where you have the, if you look at the profile of the detail going this way, you will not be able to put this kind of color in here. It's going to be just the tip. You're going to make it in this color, in this yellow, and it's going to look very strange, because the tip that you have of this detail is this way, whereas the color ends in here. Whereas if you make it like that, this is where this color goes, right? So this gold is going to be staying right in here, and it's going to be just perfect in terms of kind of visual impression. Well, you can definitely use it for some of the bits in terms of kind of design, what works, what doesn't. Here I would say the transition of the head into the body works pretty well. There's the trapezius, so it's kind of blend of human and something froggy. So I would say this is pretty good. The issue here is that this is not the style of what we're making at all. This is a very realistic. It's basically a frog standing on its feet with kind of humanoid proportions, whereas this is definitely not that. You know, it's barely even a frog to begin with. It's something way more interesting, something way more it has way more character. Here there is no character when it comes to this creature. It's just you know, it's just a frog with a costume of samurai. Here the thing that stands out, what makes this more interesting, is the just execution. The way that the metal reads, it's really well done. The way that the skin is colored, it's also really well done, because some very good transitions, and just overall the texturing is quite good. But there's nothing in terms of the character in here. All of this, you know, all of this detail, it's just that detail. There might as well be nothing inside, just, you know, just a samurai armor. If this is something that you like, that is something that you want to go for, you need to tell me, and we can focus on that. But I would say what this is definitely not what we have. You have a way more interesting character. There's way more life to him than this one. This is more interesting, but it's it's a bit silly. So again, we are in different realm with this one. So it's a good idea to have what you have in here. Maybe that this is the kind of quality that you want to achieve in terms of the final kind of polish of the textures, and maybe the you know, kind of skin that it has in here. But using that to create your character is, I would say, it would be a mistake, because we are dealing with something completely different in here. Inflate, does it work? Okay. So I'm just inflating this to see how this affected, and immediately, and that to me is more what we want. All of this little, not little, but kind of tight edges that you have in here, all of that, once I do the inflate, they become kind of bigger. You know, there's just more space for things to catch our attention, and I would say we need to make it even bigger, chunkier. So something like that from a distance. This is more interesting, and I would say it's more towards the style that we are going for, at least the style of the reference. And the top, what I was trying to say, this is what I mean. It needs to be flat like that, right? All of this needs to be kind of flat. Here we can leave it roundish. I mean, not by here, I mean the side, so we don't need to make it flat as well, because it just will transition that into some really kind of sharp looking thing with too sharp of transitions everywhere, just kind of flat surface. We want it to be flat here and just a little bit rounder in here, so there's, again, light can do some more interesting things. Even though it's a small detail, but we don't want it to be just reflecting and flickering. We want it to be kind of relaxed play of highlights in here. So this is the direction I would go for. And you know, when you have, before you add all the scratches that you've added in here, when I make this kind of detail, when I make this kind of structure, I just use the trim dynamic brushes, whichever works. I don't even know which one I'm using at the moment. It's actually H polish, but I have trim dynamic as well, so I have it on my hotkeys. Depending on the surface, one works better than the other. So here I'm using the trim dynamic, before I was using H polish. So a combination of both is also a good idea. So maybe first trim dynamic and then just kind of polishing it at the top. So when I have that, when I have this kind of structure done, and here I want it to be just a little bit more round. I'm guessing that this is what it's supposed to be. Yeah, you can see that this is just round kind of spiral, whereas here at the moment it goes in those directions. It doesn't really look like it's a round spiral. It looks like it's an oval going up. All of that is, you know, we can argue that it's a very small thing, but not really. It's how we see things, and we need to train our way of seeing things, observation. So if I was making that, I would try then just run it through clay polish, you know, and see what this will what this will do. Here there's a lot of damage, that's why it's becoming so noisy, but this clay polish thing will just make the surface a little bit kind of cleaner, a little bit tighter, and then with smooth directional, I would go manually over here and just rework some of the areas like that. I'm just trying to make it clean. Here, when I used clay polish, let's see before that what it looks like. And well, there's definitely too much noise, I would say, for me. Even though it's a beaten up kind of a surface, I would say that when you're going to start texturing this, when you're going to do the baking, all of those details, those little elements in here, they will transition into visual noise, and you want to be very careful with that. You want it to be, if you want to put it, I would say this kind of smaller bits, it might be a good idea to put it in the texturing stage rather than in the modeling, because this way you will have more control. You will basically see with the shadows, with the reflections, if it's going to be adding anything other than just visual noise or not. And here I would say that the surface is definitely kind of corroded. It should be reflecting that he's a zombie, so it's almost like it's, well, we can see it at the top that things are growing from it, right? It's almost like there's moss in here, but it's a different kind of damage. It's not just beaten up little things. It's color, something that you would probably have better understanding of, just better execution on the texturing stage. So at the moment here you have a little bit too flattish thing to go with, and so to rework this a little bit farther, I would make the ornaments just make them stand out a little bit more. Normally, the way I work, I rarely use any brushes to make those kind of ornaments. I'm going a little bit crazy. I'm a perfectionist at heart, or just some kind of trauma, doesn't matter. But the way I usually work when it comes to those kind of things, if it's a hero character, and we are making a hero character, I would go as far as to make those ornaments as a model. What I mean by that is, I would take the surface that I have, whichever surface that I'm working on. So let's say it's a cylinder. I will just export that. Imagine this is a sheath that we're working on. So what I would do next is, again, it's because I am perfectionist, but I know that this will achieve the highest quality. It's just that not everyone has this kind of patience. But if we're talking about highest quality, the way I would do it is I would make the ornaments on the modeling stage like that, and then this thing, I have more control. I can control how I want it to be, maybe in terms of the silhouette. It should be chunkier, maybe it should be a little bit kind of smoother in here. Again, it's a lot of kind of extra work compared to just doing this with a brush, but because I do have full control over this, I can just click Control Save, And let me open 3ds Max, and I'm going to show you the pipeline I use for all of those ornaments. Here it's going to be a little bit tricky. Maybe in here I would go with the brush, because there's a lot of things going on in here in terms of what is what. So I can see there's a little bit of that, a little bit of that, but even this I would probably still model that, most of that at least, because this allows me to have the foundation that I need. So if I go and open the example, I would just smooth it out. So I just immediately make it look nice and smooth, collapse, and then just add thickness to it like that. And then with some bevel tools, I make this the surface that I've been talking about this way. Just add some extra loops in here, so the shape is holding nice and well. And then if we smooth, we can see that this is what the detail looks like. And then I would bring that into, minus the subdivision, because I still want to have some control over this. If we bring that back into ZBrush, just append example. This is what it is. If I don't like something about it, I can just modify it a little bit. I can move it around this way, and that way. Just smooth it out. You can see just how clean that is. If I don't like the sharpness of it, I can always just go into deformation, and just maybe polish this, so you can see that this is no longer as sharp. If I want it to be the opposite sharp, I just run it through clay polish. It becomes kind of sharp-ish, I suppose. But when I'm happy, I'm just blending that, merging it down, and then I'm running it through Dynamesh. And because this tiny object, it needs to be bigger, so it doesn't look so polygonal. But even if that was some kind of an issue, I would just take that, run it through ZRemesher to have a cleaner topology, just subdivide it a few times, and then reproject the clean element onto that, smooth it out when needed, and this way I get a very clean looking ornament. But it's like I said, it's definitely a lot of extra work. Now you can achieve similar results, definitely not as clean, by using your brushes. It's going to be longer, I would argue. If you want to achieve that kind of a quality with brushes, it will be longer at the end of the day than just modeling those things. But here I would say you can continue with the brushes. It's just in some other cases where more precision is required, you can use that technique, maybe somewhere in here. But to continue, we need to embed those ornaments, and they're simply not working. And for brushes in here, I'm going to try a brush. So this brush, if I bring the cylinder, this is what it has for the offset, right? Very sharp edges in here and here, and I don't really want that sharpness anywhere, because it's just a little bit too much. It's a little bit too stylistic, but I do like the fact that there is sharpness in here and then there's sharpness in here. And so with lower intensity, I can go in here and embed the ornaments this way, and I'm giving I'm giving an extra edge in here, where there's going to be a better transition between this element, so there's kind of a subtle change of planes going on in here, which makes depth, adds depth to the surface that you're working on. But you need to be very careful with definitely nothing like that, right? It's just very subtle gestures of the stencil. So this way, we are by doing that, and I'm doing this very roughly, right? I'm just trying to give you an illustration. I'm not trying to finalize the surface in any sense, but what I'm trying to indicate, if you look at this this element, it's closer to what you have on your references. Well, this is a bit extreme. This is Aztec, probably Maya, not sure. Haven't got into that yet, into that research, but this is what we are trying to achieve, where things are kind of standing out. They're not just kind of elements drawn on top, and this one is already modified. So if I bring it all the way back to the original stage, duplicate, and I'm going to, so this is what it used to be, right? This is what you sent me. Here it's the way it looks, it's almost like it's a piece of metal that from the inside was kind of hammered out, right? That this detail is kind of being pushed from the inside, and it's very sharp. It looks like it's a very kind of thin sheet of metal. And this engraving is kind of done from the inside, whereas nothing about this, again, this character, the structure of what I see is indicating that it's all very kind of fundamental, kind of, you know, chunky, very very sturdy, very durable. I don't know what kind of other adjective I can use in here, and this is what I'm trying to do, to indicate that it's something that is, you know, stronger than just this piece of metal. The edges, by simply inflating this, if you look at the edges, they are smoother now. They're not going to be, again, readable. They're not going to be read as some kind of sharp, thin element. It's a big, chunky piece where the sword is being put into. So this is my approach to those kind of things. So this is what I meant when we just started the recording and the session, excuse me, that you have everything connecting into this one edge, right? So ribcage, instead of going smoother, going this way, for you, the way you've done it, it goes this way, and it's just not a good look. We definitely need to eliminate that altogether. So from all direction, I'm trying to recapture the silhouette, the structure of the ribcage, just the roundness overall of the character. I'm building quite a few things on top, obviously, so we need to bring it back in, but at the moment I'm just trying to have a little bit more foundation in here. Some pecs muscles, just a hint of that. Looking from the top, this is just too flat. I need to again rework that, and then unfortunately you don't have a smaller, not smaller, but a lower subdivision level, so I need to use move brush on the higher, and it's going to destroy quite a few things, but let's see. So something more like that. If we again compare, clone, and bring this back, and I would say this is better, not just because we've eliminated this this edge that is too pronounced, too visible. It's also, I would argue, closer to the actual concept. We still retain the roundness, the kind of egg shape in here. It's not even an egg shape. It just there's a split of the rib cage. We can see it, I would say, rather clearly, but it kind of goes as the pyramid I was explaining, going in this direction, right? So we can see the rib cage almost curving into the pecs, which is a good thing. And now we just need to make the head much bigger to get closer to the reference. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to not eliminate, but turn off all of those things that I don't need. And let's see, let's try just that. So this is what I still think is lacking. So remember last time we spent all this time to make the integration between the elements a little bit better, right? Just the design wise, it works. So some muscles I've made them a little bit pronounced, but I wanted to have this almost random shapes that will help with just the form read, something that is definitely more interesting, more kind of pleasing to look at. So all of those shapes, bones, things like that you can use to make skin folds, and etc, etc. Here the transition between the biceps, the way that it connects into the forearm, and how that connects into the hand, those things that we talked last time, we still need to address that for you, what you've done here, because some areas are just not working, some flatness going on in here. Definitely much better than what you had previously in the first time, but I would say it's still not working that well. And in here, look, I mean, this is up to you, the way you want to approach this. I think where you've taken this. This is I need to close this because it's old reference. Yeah, so I think you've looked at this model, and maybe you wanted to capture those lines that we see here. You might have wanted to capture that. Maybe it was from the actual reference where there's skin, but those lines, this kind of detail that you put in here, it's just not working, because what you have, it's almost the opposite. You have almost like the surface going inwards with those tendon looking straps, looking like there's some kind of ropes under the skin, and to me it's just not a good look. It doesn't look like, maybe this is actually from 3D Scan Store, that guy that we discussed last time at the end of the meeting, that the reference that you used. It doesn't really look like structurally wise a good pair of legs. It looks rather weak. Here what I've done, it's kind of flat still, but we have a little bit of musculature going on in here, and this is what you want to capture, this little musculature, this little things, this little kind of form. Here you can see it. He still has the muscles. There is some shape in here I can trace. There is muscle that is there, and this doesn't require any knowledge of anatomy. You just need to capture that pattern once, and then refine it, and that's how you're going to, you know, get to this stage. But the way you have it at the moment is a little bit, I would say, messy. The skin that you have on the reference, that can be put on top of what I've suggested we do. This is actually the guide. Yeah. Okay. So even here, it's not flat. We can still see the rounder shapes in here. Here there's a big kind of sheet of tendon. It's kind of keeping the muscle in. This is anatomy knowledge, but what you just need to see basically is this transition between the muscle in the back and the muscle. This mass is not in the muscle, it's just mass of things in here and like that. So it still has volume, it still has round shapes, even on something somebody as old and as skinny as this guy, we still see it. And what you kind of want is almost a blend between that, where you have a very strong indication of the musculature. Here, this muscle is not even visible. There's just a little bit hint of that by the highlight somewhere in here. But you want just basically this structure, and that's it. Something that you see, something that you observe, not something that you know from the anatomy atlas, but something that you just see on the surface and observe and capture that. So the shapes in here, those egg ones, it doesn't matter what the muscle looks like under the skin, really. You just want to capture this structure and roundness of it, and you're going to be just good. No need to do anything extra. I'm going to try, I guess, because it's something that, you know, I do at this point intuitively. So bringing that into the realm of thoughts might be a bit difficult. It's not that you're doing something wrong. It's how we see things, I guess. That's how it. I would put that. That artist that last time I showed you, Carlos Huente, it's something that you can just look at. Again, like I said last time, don't try to analyze it too much. Try to just kind of see what's happening, see the transitions, pay attention to the silhouette, pay attention to the lines. Things are not just, how should I put it? They're not just shapes that are random, just shapes on shape on shape. There's always a transition, and the more you do organic things, the more you kind of, when you do anything, the more reference you gather. If, for example, for the frog, you gathered all those references, the more you look at that, naturally, as you gather the reference, the better you get the feeling of things, the better you get the understanding of things. Because you see here just those lines, those just transitions that are very kind of smooth. They are all intertwining, they're all kind of connecting. There's no, you know, chunky things standing out. Here you can see just how beautiful that thing is, the transition. You can just take it that immediately and apply it to your work. So there's a shoulder that is going this way, and then there's a little bit of elbow sticking out, and then there's beautiful curve that is happening in here. There's a little mass that is going behind. There's a little mass, not that I see it. That's something that I've put on the leg, if you remember last time when we had another session. So it's just shape, you know, this little curvature. It's not just kind of curve, even though it is, but you can invent. So it's a curve, and then there's a little bit of a mass lying on top, and all of that is just shapes. They're just shapes that are kind of transitioning into one another. So it's not that you're doing something wrong necessarily, it's just that you're still in the process of developing your vision, and that's why I'm saying that observation, when it comes to just work in general, is one of the most fundamental things. And that's why I'm saying when I teach is that anatomy is not really important, really. I mean, if you are going to be a sculptor, yeah, anatomy is going to be a must, because sculpture is, well, it kind of requires anatomy, because in general sculpture is a figurative medium. You know, things are kind of in the motion, basically, most of the time, I would say. So for that you need to understand where the muscles are, so you can shift the mass and things like that. But for video games and for film in general, you don't need that, because you will never, you know, model your characters. Well, rarely, if it's some kind of a statue, perhaps, you will model your characters always, 99% of the time, they're going to be standing in the T poses or A poses, right? And that's it. That's going to be your execution all the time. And so once you know that, your focus and your scope, it becomes limited in the way that it should be limited within this industry. You need to be now paying attention to just form. You don't need to be thinking about anatomy as such. You need to be just developing your skill of observation, something that you see on the references that you gather, something that you see on the scans. And that's why I'm such a active in this, I guess, when it comes to scans. I'm just saying, use the scans, because this is the best reference. And here you will be just, you know, looking at things that just repeating themselves, and you're going to be just repeating them, applying them to your work as well. And they're always the same, really. Just some variation in terms of how much skin, maybe how much fat there is. But once you kind of get what works better for visually, you're just going to make it your almost like your style. You're going to be repeating that to the way you think it's going to be the most beautiful thing. But it begins from just observation. So all of those transitions, you know, how smooth they are, that nothing really stands out, not really kind of disconnected from one another. So here things are just flowing in and out. Here just beautiful transition in and out. Some shapes in here, like that. And so, you know, once you look at that, and again, it's natural that you're going to be looking at it, because as you are looking for the reference, you'll be like it's a side effect almost, that you're going to be teaching yourself, maybe training yourself visually to look at things that are kind of natural. You will take that and you will apply to anything that you're working on, be it a frog-like creature that we have here, be it, you know, an alien, like for example that I did for let's see, something that I did for Netflix, for Love, Death and Robots. They were creatures that had some, you know, kind of familiar anatomy, I suppose, but in the end it was still an alien. And I didn't want to go in and just, you know, study anatomy of a cat or whatever creature that might be. I just wanted it to be believable and looking like there is some kind of, you know, structure. And so here everything is just invented. All of those muscles, they are not from anatomy atlases. All of that, like with the Trump figure that I showed you last time, all of this is just an invention. This stuff in here, there's some kind of logical, logical structure in here, just to indicate that perhaps there's a tendon, there's a little bit similar structure to maybe what we see on I don't know, a line or something like that. There's some kind of strange thing going on here. It's almost like a bone, but it's not really, you know. Here it's almost like an arm, but it's all coming together from just observation and just looking and understanding, kind of feeling, not even understanding, just feeling what works well and what doesn't. It's almost design, really. It's not art at all. It's design, and you choose what to apply, what to use. But for that you just need to develop your sense of aesthetics. And for organics, it's, like I said, Carlos Fuente is one thing, one example to look at. Michelangelo is another example to look at. You know, something like that, where you have just those beautiful, amazing shapes within just the shoulder, all of that, how well it's integrated, this smooth transition in here, just kind of chunky, bigger shapes, rather than, you know, something that is typical, especially in video games. We have this crazy amount of striations and muscles, and you know, you will definitely be doing that once you're in the industry. You will be kind of making everybody tensed up, because that's kind of what is almost required. But in general, you first of all, I still think you need to develop this kind of sense, because once you get the feeling of the shapes and how they're integrated, you can then break them up, make the muscles somewhere in here if need, maybe make a tendon somewhere in here where it's needed. But it's, you know, first of all, it's how things are flowing and going. And for that, I also have this this technique that I told you last time, where I just, by pressing V, I'm going into the silhouette mode, like that. And here I'm not necessarily looking at the proportions. I'm not looking at the scale or the size of the character. You know, that also happens, but it's not what I'm using this this feature for, because I can, without that, I can see whether scale is working or not. What I'm looking at is the kind of connection of things. So here, for example, now this is just too boxy. You know, there's nothing really interesting going on. There are eyes, but I don't really see them as eyes. They might as well be just some kind of ears in here, right? So I would probably, just by looking at that, I would make a transition between this shape into the eyes. So there's something interesting, more interesting, but the transition shouldn't be like we have, for example, on the neck in here, even though this, I would argue, is working pretty well. What I've done here, it's, you know, it's also working, but there's no big deal if you keep it this way. It's just that the way it was executed, like for example from this view, it's just now becoming strange. There's a kind of bump in here, a big dent in here, another bump. Something is just missing. We need to either smooth it out like that, just bring that, maybe make the angle. My English is getting worse. Something maybe more like that. And it's just transitions. See, so if I bring everything back and just next to each other, it is the transition. So things are just a little bit more smoother in general, even though this transition between them is very sharp, but everything outside it is just flowing nicely. Whereas here, it's just one thing stands out, another thing stands out, another thing, right? And so it's just a bit too much, really. And so that's what I'm using. This if I need to, I use this V key feature to just see better. If I'm getting a bit lost when there's color and shading, if I'm getting a bit lost, I'm just switching here and I'm looking at how things are reading. So immediately, if I look down here, things are kind of okay. Still can, you know, work to do, but it's okay. I don't really still like how the shoulders are going, because with the silhouette, they're still too high up. I don't really feel like there is a space between the head and the shoulder, which is definitely something to fix. But if I look down, the legs, they're not working. I can almost feel that there is some kind of structure, that there is almost like a muscle maybe going in there, and then there's a tendon that creates the silhouette, which is, you know, okay. But I would expect things to be a little bit more interesting at the top as well. So maybe some kind of a thing like that, but everything below is just falling apart. It's just a cylinder. There is some kind of bump going on here, but in terms of, you know, interest, there's nothing really. It's just a very kind of noisy flat shape, and I would want it to be maybe something like that, maybe going a little bit out like that. Maybe the heel would be going out as well. The feet just in general be a little bit wide, not wide but longer. So those kind of things. And I'm, you know, as I teach, I try to teach that, but it's probably one of the most difficult things. It's just observation, really, at the end of the day. And so once you develop that, you will know immediately what to look for, where the mistakes are, and just, you know, fixing that is is where your skill of sculpting is required.